You know what the secret of Oak Island is? They've somehow milked that bitch for like 15 seasons and made money off of it. I don't know. Like, that's the secret from History Channel, is they've literally shown you guys digging a hole and doing nothing. TSG checking in from South Bedrock. Beautiful day here. Just want to report. How do we think South Bedrock's doing? Has the have we gotten that petition together to keep the Starbucks out?
I mean, South Bedrock, man. It wasn't Starbucks to begin with.
It's fermented brontosaurus tea.
That's It starts with the fermented brontosaurus pea. It leads to the Starbucks. You get gentrification.
Well, no, I kind of feel like it was a little bit closer to like a McDowell's versus a McDonald's. So we had like Starbacks. You know?
Oh, nice.
We had
nice.
Stuck Bucks. Yeah.
Stuck Bucks.
Starsaurus.
I think that's
they have the deity. We have the dainty. They have venti. We have vanity. We have vanity. That's what we have.
Vanity.
We have vanity come out of nowhere to give you coffee.
But was that before or after
that.
she became a Jesus?
Right.
I forget what that was, but yeah. Oh well.
Free stickers to the Last Dragon.
I'm loving this right now. I'm loving this image of the McDowell's in South Bedrock. I'm totally down with this right now. This is America, Jack. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Come in here.
All our animals are liberated. They just have, their own jobs and stuff like that. We're actually using technology. We're not forcing animal slave labor.
Yeah. All right. They talk every once in a while. They break the fourth wall and look at the camera, and you think you have it hard. Right.
Except for those uppity triceratops.
God damn triceratops,
keep
man.
Working.
Thinking they're better than us, the triceratops. Well, yes, you have indeed tuned in to the Steam Gentlemen. We've reconvened our council, our panel down here in the Steam tunnels. Want to give a quick shout out to, I think, a listener who, as far as I can tell, shot up our loyal category here. Whomever is listening to us in the Caymans, can't get down to if it's the Grand Cayman or whichever one, which I scuba dove in once. Had an asshole of a scuba master that I had to get another guy, German. Coincidence? I don't know. Probably. Beautiful scuba diving down there. Somebody listened to 28 of our episodes in one day, or 27 in one day. It all, pretty much as I can tell, came out of the Caymans. Wow. So God bless you. You get nothing but some Steam love up here. If you want to cut us in on some of that, if you want to cut us in on the on any of those offshore account love, I mean, we're down. Just help our advertising budget, whatever that may be, maybe even just a trip down there. We're open. We're game. We're here, game. But we wanted to say thank you for that, and thank you for listening, and thank you to all for listening. Hopefully, get some new listeners coming in today, welcoming into the world of the Steam Gentlemen, where pop culture and social commentary meet. While I have you here, since you're have followed us this far, maybe you're following us on the socials at the Steam Gentlemen Podcast on Facebook, or do you even Steam Bro over on Instagram? But also make sure to pop on over to Apple Podcast and rate, review us, give us all that good love. Then we can, you can tell a friend to tell a friend, and keep pushing that nefarious Steam agenda and getting us out there into the world. But before I convene and talk about our subject that brings us here today, let me introduce you to the rest of the panel. In the red corner, weighing in. No, we won't do that. But, red corner, we got the star child himself, Mr. Gregory DeSense. How you doing today?
I'm feeling all right, man. Ready to go and think about the end of the world.
Oh, well, always a favorite subject, or at least the near end of the world, right? Which,
yeah,
feels like we've had one of those every other day these last couple of years anyway.
Oh, look, darling, it's the apocalypse again.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
indeed.
look.
Oh,
Oh,
moving on to which chapter today? Which horseman is on the ride, eh? Does like I said, we've talked about it, but I for those of you who are waiting on the rapture, I'd hurry some shit up. That's all I'm saying. Like, move it. I think you're getting the signals. So I'm just saying, check the bags, pay for the extra bag check. Like JetBlue, whatever, $25 they want to charge you. You know how it is. There's always an upcharge. I guarantee you, even going to heaven, there's going to be an upcharge in there somewhere. This is America.
Sorry, cut in there, Josh, but I'm kind of siding with Greg from his point from last week, which was maybe the rapture already happened, and a lot of those people are finding out the hard way.
I'm 100% in the. I'm 100% in there. In the corner with brother Greg here, without a doubt.
You ain't going.
I think if 5 people went, it's probably unlikely that the amount of people who disappear every day in this country and in the world. It's entirely possible it could have gone missed. So.
You ain't going.
Yep. Yeah. Sorry to tell y'all, but actually it leads it perfectly to our avenging angel, to the brother who brings it with heavenly wrath. The 3 of clubs, RaShaun Smith. How you doing today?
Well, one of my favorite movies is Dogma, so I guess it does kind of land. I actually kind of felt like that was Ben Affleck's best acting, frankly. I mean,
one could make the argument. I know he's been in a tiff with Kevin Smith. Shout out to Kevin Smith. Much love. Throwing it back to our Clerks episode. Love you, babe. Love you, boo. You're welcome here anytime.
It's sad. Him and Kevin Smith always makes me think of like the band where one member falsely thinks that they've outgrown the band and can go out on their own, and they do all right here and there. Like I guess what I'm saying is Ben Affleck the Robbie Williams of the boy band groups where you just leave. I forgot what I think it was, like Take That or something.
I was gonna go with why you gotta do Oasis like that, but yeah, I'm with you. Like I get
was Robbie Williams on Oasis?
No, I was just thinking when you mentioned the brothers there, when you mentioned the band and
you want to go Liam and Noel.
Liam and Noel was where my head went, but that's the beauty of metaphor. It's the beauty of music, right? You bring to it what you want. Nobody's wrong.
I mean, if they're a good example. I personally like to go when I'm thinking of brothers in a band that end up hating each other to all end. I like to go to Black Crowes personally myself.
Another fine example. Yeah, no, I'm with you on that.
And I was right. It was Take That. But yeah, I always felt like Ben Affleck was Robbie Williams, because come on, man, you gotta get mad at Kevin Smith. My man put you in like 3 different movies. What, 3? Mallrats, Chasing Amy, Dogma. Actually 4, because it was the return of
Jay and Silent Bob as well.
Come on, man. But back to my central point, I really do feel like when my man was finding out that he really is the morning star, he really earned that paycheck.
I think so, man. I think that's I think
how did we get here, people? Because I was called the Avenging Angel, and somehow we were talking about Ben Affleck and Robbie Williams.
That is the world we live in. That is the world.
I can do revelations all day. We can go ahead and change the subject. Yeah.
Nah, we'll stick to our subject for today. But yes, this is
I felt like Dogma was really saying there isn't going to be any sort of revelation or a sort of rapture. It's just basically kind of like, hey, you guys are fucking lucky to still be here.
But even as a Jewish guy, I would put a Buddy Christ on my dashboard there.
You know how many people I make upset when I post that gif? Like people, they get so upset they don't even respond. They're just like,
that's like, who would have thought?
Caricature of Jesus, like, you don't? Have you seen some of the things out there?
All right.
Well, I'm gonna stop it real quick, but I will say, blonde hair, blue eyed. We'll just leave it at that. We'll just leave it at that.
Like, holy shit, Hell's Angels has been around for a lot longer than I knew. Mesopotamia chapter.
1%ers, baby. 1%ers. All right.
Exactly.
Don't look at me sideways or you're going to get stopped. But yes, this little free flow, this little stream of consciousness is just a quick little snippet into our world of pop culture and social commentary. But yeah,
I can't believe I dropped a Robbie Williams.
it is pretty. It is impressive and got it right. And, even went over my head. So I'm impressed. I got to say, I need
help if I got it right. I need help.
We all do, kid. Act accordingly.
We all do,
but
kid.
We were, having our fun here, having our musings, having our time, thinking about the world around us. And we're living in this amazing dystopia right about now. I mean, realistically, man, start to take the masks off. I know they were never supposed to come off. Trust me. I've talked to the World Domination Subcommittee meeting that I'm on. We were supposed to keep them on the entire time and use it to enslave the people, but a lot of those are going away, whether you like it, whether you don't. That's your own choice, but that's going away. And as soon as that happens, boom, we move into war, right? Next horseman on the ride. But really, it does feel like we're living in, at best, a dystopian graphic novel, if not a full-on dystopian movie. But again, kind of like last week, we wanted to think about like where did those visions get it right? Where do we think those visions have gotten it right? Where do we think that we are on point in pop culture? And where does it make that social commentary? Because really one leads the other, right? I mean, how we're feeling as a people, as a mood, as a nation, as a world, influences pop culture. It influences art. It presents things. It holds us up to a mirror. So yeah, I'm going to be interested in the next, 5-10 years of entertainment. If, assuming there is 5-10 years of entertainment to be had, and, somebody doesn't get a little trigger happy, and we don't get to really see how it stacks up. But really, what were those envisionments of that world still here, but, working nightmarishly well, that used to be for entertainment. Now it seems to be more for what? An instruction manual? Could be that.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, no lie detected, right? It's one of those things. That's where we want to take it today. Our dystopia myopia, if you will. Really, I just chose those two words because they rhymed. They really don't have that much. They really don't. For anybody out there like me who's a word nerd, feel free to write to us. Let us know. doevensteambro@gmail.com. Feel free to chew me out for that one. But I thought, it's a cute rhyme, so we can go with it. But this was actually Brother Greg's initial subject matter that he was bringing up here. So I want to let him step up to the plate, take his 10 minutes of fame here. Let us know. Talk about where the world has gone wrong, and when the world is running down, how do we make the best of what's still around?
Well, I started because I wanted to do kind of a comparison between V for Vendetta and 1984, the George Orwell novel. There was also a 1984 movie starring John Hurt and Richard Burton.
Really great film.
Yeah, absolutely recommended. Like, I think it was really true. I think the reason it's not very popular is because it's really true to the novel. And much like Friedrich Nietzsche, most people get it totally wrong when they try to talk about the novel. The movie that tried to kind of distill it into something that was much more palatable was V for Vendetta. You have the, surveillance state that's controlling thought and oppressing its people, but there's a hero in this one, and not in the book, where the hero kind of, spoiler alert, I'll say loses in the end, but the point is he's used to make that greater point, whereas in V for Vendetta, they kick ass and they, destroy the horrible administration and everybody cheers. But fuck that noise. This is a dystopia. We're not about happy endings. We're not doing that here. No, absolutely not. Because I think it takes away from the point that Orwell was trying to make when he was making what was essentially a comparison between Stalin and Hitler. Stalin was supposedly the, quote, leftist in this. Like, he was doing this for the people. He was doing this to get rid of the people who are oppressing the people. So, well, interestingly enough, he can start oppressing the people, but so he can bring egalitarianism to the masses. On the other hand, you have Adolf Hitler, who was a right-winger who kind of used the same tactics as Stalin at the end of the day. His was much more mechanized and unfortunately much more efficient. But the way that he would stoke that nationalism, the way that he would stoke that hatred towards the other, all of that, at least for Orwell, there were different tools that had the exact same end: control. And the idea was, whenever you fall into either camp, too hard on the left or too hard on the right, the left constantly telling people, what they should want. People find that, very dismissive and arrogant. And then you have the right, who are always making these kind of promises that the state can give you and reaffirming your identity, but at the same time, taking you down this path of destruction. And there wouldn't be any real opposition towards either of them, but they kind of use the same techniques of control. Like one thing that really gets brought up against the left, especially now, is the changing of language. Like you have to use the party's language. You have to use the party's terms. Now, if you're on the left, obviously you say this is to be more inclusive, but the point is you are changing language. And then on the right, it would be, surveillance, say, for example, it would be constant surveillance. But at the same time, it's not just the state, it's also corporations. It's also corporations that we use and need and, give a lot of our information to willingly. Like it was interesting that the idea was, if we ever found out the nefarious things that the state and the corporation were doing, then we'd snap. No, we didn't. We just kind of went along with it, like, all right, yeah, but I really need GPS. So
tragic optimism is what we call that. It's what we call that assumption.
No sex. That's one thing that they point out in Orwell's novel. People aren't allowed to have anything but state-approved sex, and the right. Mostly the right has the no fap movement. I thought that was an interesting thing. Like, why? Because when you're not getting laid and you're not getting off, you're angry. You're angry. And one of the parts that speaks to me the most is when they play, they sit everybody in the big meeting room and they play the supposed argument of the supposed opposition. Like whether or not this opposition really exists doesn't matter. But then the mob just starts screaming and yelling to the point where the point is to just not let the message in at all. And especially, again, right now, the left and the right are guilty of this. Like if somebody else even says they understand the other side's point, you already went too far. You already went too far off the deep end, and you are a traitor to the movement. That's very, very telling of what's happening right now. Controlling the narrative. You hear a lot of people using this word narrative these days, and you use your whatever news agencies support your worldview to control that narrative, and it has to be constantly reinforced. Every single day. It's the left is eroding your freedom. Every single day, it's the right are going to rise up and kill everyone, and because they think that that's their way to heaven, for example. All of those things, as soon as you get to the point where you're saying, if you're on the left, you're using it against the right, and you're on the right using it against the left, you already missed the point. Because I think it's more probably the left that enjoys the state told you, what was it, 2 + 2 = 5? Was that the quote?
That is the big quote that comes out of there. There are 5 lights, 4 lights.
Right, exactly.
Lights.
There are 4 lights. Yeah. And they use that against them more often than not, but actually it could definitely be used against the left. I think the cautionary tale in the whole story of 1984 is that we, looking for freedom, have to look out for either one of those options once they fall into these categories, once they start doing these things. In other words, it's these things that they do to the people that are the real threat. because in Orwell's time, there was no, and the reason that this was so important to Orwell is because World War II is a fascinating thing. Don't forget, you're coming off of the heels of World War One, which was supposed to be the Great War. Like this was going to be
end all wars.
War to end all wars, right? Spoiler alert, it wasn't. It ushered in World War II, which was leftist movements, nationalist movements, fascist movements, right wing movements, like just all of these political movements, but they all seem to be using the same tactics, and no other tactic was better than war. Because war, one, suddenly you're thrust in a position of survival. So you don't give a shit about other ideas or nuance or anything. Like this is about survival. Moreover, it's about the survival of your nation. You know, like your identity is intrinsically tied to your nation. So it's the survival of your country. It's the survival of your identity. And so there can be no heroes on the other side. There can be no argument from the other side. And from a state point of view, it works great. Because keeping people hungry and angry, I mean, what better way than war? Moreover, you kill easily a massive percentage of the working class and poor. They're nothing but troublemakers anyway. And nothing better for getting, that nationalist fervor whooped up again. You know what I mean? Like it's something you can always politically fall back on. Hey, guys, remember the war? Hey, guys, remember what happened during the war? And so the idea that the state just kind of cooks up these wars every now and again just to maintain that kind of control, also pretty damn brilliant. Like that's a really brilliant observation, even right up until now. Like you look at the Bush administration and the Iraq war and the Afghan war after in the shadow of 9/11. Yeah, after that, people weren't thinking like, no, we're at war now, we have to win, end of story. Doesn't matter if it was legal or illegal or unjust or immoral, doesn't matter. Like we're at war now, we have to win it. The most important part of it, and a lot of people have kind of piggybacked on this in different ways, including in The Matrix, The Wall, is when other people start betraying each other, which was an important part, not just in Nazi Germany, but anytime, definitely during war, people start turning on each other, whether it's, again, Nazi Germany or, the communist hunt here in the United States. So for me, V for Vendetta, don't get me wrong, I love Hugo Weaving and I totally think he could save the world, but I think it's more important to focus on 1984. And before I go, big shout out to Back to the Future Part 2, also nailed it. Biff Tannen was absolutely Donald Trump.
Well, we're gonna take all that.
We don't need no thought control.
I did love that. I gotta say, sticking the landing, going all the way from Pink Floyd to Back to the Future 2. There's nothing else that we do on this show. That
had to be a shout out, and shout out to Fight Club, the observation he makes where he says, when we populate space, corporations will name everything.
As Amazon, and Amazon's on the moon, without a doubt. Yeah, we get that going. Well, there's, it's that chilling dystopia, right? That, I remember, of course, I'm of the generation that was in school in 1984. So they, of course, made us read 1984. And I'm glad, by the way, because I do believe, knowing myself, I would have read it anyway at some point. But of course, we had to sort of, talk about 1984 because it was that year, right? That he happened to, that he could have chosen 3022, right? It was the point wasn't about the year, people. But that idea of, what states can do, where we're at, where, what control can a state really have over someone, and what could, what could that do to a society? But as you make the real salient and true point, for Orwell, that wasn't it wasn't a theoretical, right? He just watched World War I and World War II, and of course, seen the horrors of Nazi Germany close up, right? Going back to our shout out to our little Red Dawn thing. that speech that the colonel makes in Red Dawn, I was watching just recently because of that. And they ask him what started it, right? And he kind of shrugs his shoulders and he says, this is the two biggest kids on the block, maybe they're just bound to fight. But my favorite conclusion, he says, maybe they just forgot what it was like. And I think that is so true to the human condition. We get to these areas of extremis. We get to this point where we're at each other's throats, literally, figuratively, in every other such way. And for whatever reason, sometimes in history, we have this cooling off period. We happen to have grown up in one of them, somewhere between the 70s and, all the way into the early 2000s, relatively quiet. Not saying completely, not saying there was not some horrible shit that went down. I'm just saying from that sort of global geopolitic level, not quite as extreme. But we forget, why we don't want to do this. We forget the importance of not doing this, right? Of not going in and doing these things. And when we forget, we get in some serious trouble. So the sound there you heard was of the three of clubs having his aneurysm. So
well, yeah, because I really hope this isn't part of my time, just more of my ability to counter certain points. The biggest problem I have with everything that I just said, actually I have a few. So one, we grew up in the 80s. So if anyone grew up in the 80s, I know you two older gentlemen were born in the 70s, but a lot of your life was in the 80s. So take yourself back to like when you're watching G.I. Joe, and right in the middle of or towards the end of the show, they somehow just pivot, break the fourth wall, look at you and give you some weird ass advice. Like that's why I continue to fight for us to stay out of the quote unquote left and right conversation. The other problem I have with this is that every single time these conversations happen and people go in this direction, what they're also saying is, I know everything you idiots do not know, and I am here to clarify both sides for you because I have the right way of thinking. I just assume we don't go in those conversations because, one, no, that's not how wars are actually started or created. And George Orwell, I really don't think it was actually making a lot of the points he just said. There's no fucking way in the world he could have. And on top of that, you don't actually have a war to kill off the masses because guess what? That is your workforce. So no, that's the reason why even the Geneva Convention, they point out, no, you just can't go in and just kill massive amount of fucking civilians. Why? Because no matter what, it's going to be someone's workforce. Like there's so many different ways we can go at everything that was just said. Just like, that's just a reaction. It was the same thing that I was talking about last episode where themes don't actually have titles. We look back at eras and themes and then we apply titles. They aren't existing in the moment. We all look back at these things with knowledge that has been gained, and then we make our own assertions and definitions. When you're existing in the moment, you don't have that ability. And matter of fact, I would find out, I guarantee you, no one at Pompeii thought that the world was going to continue when they saw a giant fucking volcano go off. That's the end of the world for them. It wasn't like, well, I wonder what's going to happen in China. No, it's fucking done. Like that's what they're thinking. So when researchers and historians go back and they can uncover things, they can then make assertions or guesses or hypotheses, but it's not actually what probably was happening in the moment. Same thing we're probably thinking of George Orwell. He called it 1984 because at fucking 1949, when this was published, 1984 did seem like a far ass way from reality. You don't have to even go that far to understand what he was talking about because fucking take yourself through Disney World, Epcot Center. When was the last time you went through the home of the future? That shit was literally squared up into the 60s. But like when they created it, that's as far as they can think. Like there's so many different ways I can go about why that is just so folly to even go in those directions.
Well,
clearly we need to have just this episode about 1984 and George Orwell because you missed it.
No, I didn't. I actually read George Orwell. I actually read 1984.
I think no, but let's put that. We can't get into it now, but let's put that on the calendar.
You're applying current definitions of what quote unquote right and left is to a man who hasn't fucking been alive for like 30 plus years and wrote a story 70 years ago. That is insane. That's literally like us going back to the caveman and be like, well, this one was a Republican and this one was a Democrat. There's no fucking way in the world you can actually break that down. He had a lot of great points. And there's a lot of cellular things that we can go to when it comes to 1984. But I really don't think it came down to, well, this was a Republican and this was a Democrat. I know the right way.
All right, I gotta break it. I gotta get in.
What we can do, the way we did
there and break it up before the barbecue gets out of control.
Well, hold on, wait. I was gonna say, like, maybe we could do a deep dive because we can't get into it now, but we can do the way we did a deep dive on Clerks. Sounds like we need to do a deep dive on 1984. All right,
we can put that out there. We'll put that out there on the agenda. We'll put it out there. You know, let it vote. Let you know, we'll ruminate on it. Take that moment to breathe it out. But let's you know, I want to hear what the Three of Clubs thinks about his visions of dystopia. You know, aside from the current moment. I do love the fact that you point out that hindsight is in fact 2020. So, you know, I
mean, a lot of our references, that's the other point that we can go to that we literally just continue to do over and over and over, and blows my mind. A lot of our references aren't from historical books. They're not from actual accounts. They're not from, you know, actual learned documents and research and stuff like that. You know what they're from? Fucking movies. They're all from fucking movies. Every single one of these ideas and thoughts across the board, not even including what you just heard, but also throughout most of social media and how we think about things, they're all from movies. And guess what? Movies were fucking taking guesses. That's all they were doing. Sometimes they were taking educated guesses because that was the best thing they could do with the research and the information that they could find and the amount of time and the budget that they had. Other times, they didn't fucking know what the fuck they were talking about. It's a shot in the dark. And sometimes it was budget. Literally budget. I even brought up a couple of episodes ago that how we actually got to an understanding of the image of a ninja. Guess what? Ninja ain't what you fucking think it is. But it came out because some white dude back in 1920 something when he was making a movie, and they're like, hey, you have to have a ninja in the scene. He's like, I don't know what the fuck that is or what it looks like. And they're like, we don't know either. So they just fucking threw some guys in black because it was also easier to film. Go ahead, Josh.
Well, I'm just saying that, you know, first I want to give you that 10 minutes. I want to find out what your dystopian view is here. And exactly. And I think also, just to give a shout out to the fine film Grand Canyon, all of life's questions are answered in the movie, because that's why we're here. Without that very salient observation, that of course we're making all these references from movies, we wouldn't be here. So let's hear about your 10 minutes from that dystopian myopian view.
Making a reference from a movie is fine, but when we start basing historical ideas and understandings and accounts and factual thoughts towards what we actually just saw in the movie is a real big problem. And frankly, I kind of think it's what has marred our entire world for the last 30 years. I love movies. I think they're great. They're influential. But when you start talking to people about, like, let's say the subject history, you will immediately find out that most of what they have to tell you is from a fucking movie or movies. Like, that is problematic to such a degree that it's scary that we don't even think about it. Like, we're all like, yeah, cool. We're just going to go off the opinion of some guy who just put in a movie because he fucking had so many other reasons to put it in there other than being historically accurate. Like, historically accurate tends to be the last thing people who are making movies actually come across when they're trying to make something. You don't believe me? There's a YouTube fucking channel. I forgot the guy's like, I'll find it and we'll put it in the comments or something like that. But he takes movies and he'll base it against actual historical accounts, documents, and facts. And guess what? Almost every single one of them is so fucking far off base that even thinking that that was what the world was like in the middle of these moments is just about as accurate as what we've been talking about, which is what the end of the world is going to look like. Again, no one's going to fucking really know. We can all take shots, but you're not going to fucking know because A, thank God we're not there. And B, how the fuck will we know when we get there? Like, there's so many different ways you can break down. So I would actually just like to focus on some of the fun. And when I mean fun, like, whoa, you guys really took a fucking shot when it comes to looking at dystopia. Now, can I go into where my mind always goes in these moments? I brought it up when we talked about survival moments in movies and stories. I brought it up when we talked about the undead in zombie type movies, like when people are pulling together, you know, all my head always goes to, where the fuck you gotta use the bathroom? Where's the designated bathroom? Like we all can sit there and talk about.
That's a good point.
Yeah, right?
That's a good point. You know, if you're alive, you're still got
solid fucking point.
Yeah,
right.
If you're alive, you still got
one of my worst nightmares is thinking like, what would happen if I am surviving out on the sea with like a bunch of people on like some raft because a boat went down? You know, like what you get about 7 days without water before things actually become fatal. You get about almost 2 weeks without food before things get fatal. So you got some time, but that's a lot of fucking excrement that we're going to have to talk about and figure out how we're going to, you know, operate. Like what part of the boat are we shitting in? You know, it's might be liquid day 4, but you still got to do it. Or, you know, if we're all surviving in some abandoned building because of like a dystopian war or a zombie apocalypse or something like that, same thing. It's like, hey, can we figure out what are we doing with the shit? So I could go to that direction, right? You know, not to get sidetracked, but it also makes me always think about the love stories in these moments. Like, look, I get that love is going to survive and all that, but you can't tell me that people aren't going to be like, oh my God, your area smells like complete poop. And then the person looking at them
smell
like,
you from here. I
and
can
the person
smell
looking
your
at
balls
you is like,
oh my God.
your area smells like poop too. And it's like, we all just smell like, so I guess maybe it all just levels out. Like maybe everyone's just smelling poop, so you no longer smell it.
You've gone nose deaf, sir. You've gone nose deaf. You need to get out of the room.
Right. So I'm going to go past that. I don't know what the fuck this dystopia is going to look like. I applaud people who are kind of like, yeah, it's going to be bleak. I also love the people who are going to be like, it's going to be kind of fucking wacky. It's going to be kind of weird. We're going to take one thing that we've been doing and we're going to do it to the fullest fucking extent to the point where that is actually your dystopia. I could go to Johnny Mnemonic, which a lot of people would point out is basically the prequel to fucking Matrix. I could go in that direction. I'm not, because I just said it. So I'm just going to go to like things like Cyborg and Cyborg 2, where it's like, yeah, fuck it. It's just going to be a bunch of abandoned buildings, maybe some fires every once in a while. We're going to have this group over here that's going to have this android doctor that's going to save the world from some, you know, some generic virus, you know, which kind of lands a little bit harder in these days than not. And we're going to have Jean-Claude Van Damme be the difference. Or Cyborg 2, where they're like, yeah, we're not even going to try that hard. We're just going to put some wires every once in a while in some weird places, and we'll stick with the abandoned buildings. I could talk about Highlander 2, which just the existence of that movie kind of tells me that we were already in the dystopia.
No, I'm talking about Highlander 2. I'm talking about Highlander 2.
That movie, its existence makes me feel like we were already in the dystopia. So, you know, it could go to that. Judge Dredd is always a fun one for me and thinking about like dystopic landscapes. Because the funny part is, watch this thing. I need to write these YouTube guys down so I can give them a little shout out and some love. But guy was breaking down the math of the crime rate in these mega cities. And guess what, people? I hate to tell you, you're already living in a worse crime rate area than these mega cities. I mean, they give you big numbers to scare the shit out of you. And just the number of people in these mega cities alone scares someone like me to near death. I am just that number. I don't like to be around a lot of people. My friends know that. It gets worse as I get older. So having a city that's like 40 million people, I don't know how I would do it. But same thing. When you take the math of the crime rate that they talk about in Judge Dredd, I hate to tell you, but you could be living in Idaho and you could be having a higher crime rate than Judge Dredd. So I'm not sure where to go with that fucking franchise. I'm going to take a shot at Predator 2. Guess what, people? If you actually watched the movie and went through the movie and understand why the Predators got there, they literally said, we thought you guys were ending. Like, we kind of thought you guys were kicking in the towel. We thought you guys were done with civilization. So I don't know. We just kind of figured we'd come and hang out, you know, do what you guys are doing, learn a little bit from you guys. You guys seem to understand how to kill each other on a level we're not even willing to go to. I mean,
I thought it was that kind of party. I mean, what are you so upset about?
The Predator came to that party and they literally put their balls in the Jello and they're like, what? It's not that kind of party.
What?
Meanwhile, there's like Caligula going on. But meanwhile, there's like Caligula going on and next to it, and people are like, whoa, Predator. People are eating Jello, man. Come on, man. we're not there. They're like, Predator's like, what the fuck? you guys see this shit? Oh, by the way, Caligula never happened the way people think it did. But anyway, moving on. So go to also, I'm gonna hit hard on my man Greg because I already did that, so I might as well just lean in. Star Trek. Guess what, people? Star Trek happens after a dystopic moment in human civilization. They do a good job of pointing that out, at least in the first of the new movie reboots. But that has always been how the Federation came about. Basically, the world was done. We had already gone to try and kill each other on massive levels, and there was some sort of global new world order that took over and gave us fucking starships. So, hey, it couldn't have been that bad. The Aliens franchise. Now, this one gets a little interesting because some of the remakes like Prometheus and Covenant made it seem like humans really made it out at least the 21st century decently well, to the point where we can now do interstellar travel. However, actually, no, most of the backstory of Aliens is that Earth is completely a pit hole, complete shit. It is almost unlivable unless you are like Otani, not Otani, Wayland, help me out, Josh. Wayland, what you call it?
It's oh man,
is it Otani?
It's Wayland Otani. Yeah, I thought.
Yeah. Sorry, fantasy baseball is kicking back up, and one of my keepers is Shohei Otani. So I'm a little gun shy on the name. But point being, it's like unless you're that guy,
that was honest.
Earth is not the place you want to be with, and that is actually accentuated before I even bring it back to the comics. Which again, if you can find the Dark Horse Aliens franchise comic, get it. Is really the only way you're going to get a good fucking story of aliens after the first two movies. However, they accentuate this in Aliens 4 when they're saying, hey, guess what? The autopilot's bringing our shuttle back to the safest place. And they're like, where? And then the next line is Earth. And one of the people said, I'd rather fucking be with aliens. Like, that is how bad Earth is. So, yeah, they're in a dystopia in the Aliens franchise. Starship Troopers, same thing. Funny thing is, if you actually want to bring up a political conversation and dystopia, you kind of missed it by not skipping right over fucking Starship Troopers. It literally is talking about. There's no skipping around it, and they're talking about very specific groups. However, the funny part is, to what Greg's point could have been, which was that the whole society of Starship Troopers kind of starts when a full lean on one side kicks in, and the reaction is a full lean on the other side. It's not a matter of right or left. I'm not here to tell you what that is. I'm just pointing out what they're really saying is if government has the power to take one group completely one side, they have the power to do the other. So that civilization kind of kicks in. I don't want to even, I obviously ran out of time because I had to fucking spend time talking about some bullshit. But frankly, I think we're skipping over some of the easy ones. Like movies like Screamers, movies like fucking Hardware, movies like Crash and Burn. By the way, I didn't say hardware. I mean, Waterworld, because Waterworld is literally hardware, but on water. So, right. So, but the reason why I bring that up is because the thing that I think about all the time is probably because I was a young teenager watching old ass Showtime Cinemax. Believe it or not, when Cinemax wasn't showing boobs, they were showing you Dystopia in the early 90s.
Oh, yes.
All these fucking movies kind of came down to the same thing. Nuclear holocaust made the whole world a goddamn desert, and it's unnecessarily hot, and there's no water. I hate to tell you, but we already got 3 out of the 4 right now. So that's why my mind always goes to movies like that. There's a shitload of other movies. I encourage people to go and have themselves a binge fest.
Yeah, fantastic. You three a club that one, baby. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm muy impressed. That was some good shit right there. That was absolutely fantastic. Bringing it into your own, as you say, we don't really know. So call back, shout out to our last episode. Prove me wrong. Well,
I mean,
we get back to that point.
My mind always goes to every single time real fast is like, what are people going to say about us 100 years from now? What are people going to say about us 1,000 years from now? And then my next question is, fuck, are we even going to make 1,000 years from now? But the point being is we look back at things that are 20 years back that we were alive on, and we're constantly reclassifying. So I can't imagine what's going to happen 100 years from now when they're looking back at generations that we're currently in, or even 1,000. How much are they going to get right? how much are they going to get wrong? And I'm willing to bet it's going to be live. And who knows? Maybe they're going to look back at this time and be like, fuck, these guys were in dystopia.
There is a lot to be said for that. Yeah. You as is the case, right? This show is improv. We talk through the week, folks, about our subject. We have that idea of what we're going to do. And, often the answer's still got to be yes, and to be a good improv partner. We know that. But you just did a beautiful job leading me into my thoughts on Dystopia. And when you were talking about like looking back on all these years ago and what it is. So I'm stepping up. It is me, the Birdman, stepping up for his 10 minutes here. And, it's interesting because, if you go out there and you look on the connection to this, the link I leave every week to our merch store, buy our merch. You've got, that I'm a huge Blade Runner fan. So of course, we're talking about Dystopia. Of course, Blade Runner is going to pop right into my head because going back to what RaShaun said, it was just, there was something about it that sat so right on with me of like, oh yeah, that really looks like it could be right. But now we've already passed when Blade Runner was set. It was 2019, which who would have known that would have been one of the calmer years, right?
Yeah.
We look back on 2019. I remember, asking my friends in Los Angeles to send me pictures and see if we had the spinners, the floating cars yet, and all that good stuff. If Kurt Russell in that unofficial sequel was out there yet, in the Blade Runner verse, and to tie in Blade Runner verse in the sequel, if you notice, when they're walking through the corporate halls there with Jared Leto, there's a Prometheus engineer as one of the in the case there. So they've linked all these universes together. Yep, there's there is a total possibility that
to be fair to Soldier, they also linked they kind of took a shit on all sci-fi actually, because when you look at Todd, who's Kurt Russell's character in Soldier, and you look at his dossier, he's literally linked to every single major sci-fi battle that happened up until that moment. Like he's linked to Star Trek. Yes. He's linked to Escape from New York. I mean, my man.
He has the Pliskin medal for valor. Yes, he does. Which talk about being meta, right? You're referencing your own character as a medal for valor. I caught that one. I never caught the other ones, and that one made a little bit more sense in the sense of like one dystopia to another. And we didn't even talk about Escape from New York, or we don't have to bring up Escape from LA. We don't. We can move on. Apparently, Kurt Russell loved that one though.
I liked it.
It had Bruce Campbell, but all right. But sticking to,
I liked it.
Sticking to when I look at things right now of what might be a little closer, what might be on that, immediate horizon. Not 10 years out, not 20 years out, or maybe even sooner. I had to come back and land on Westworld. Then when I say that, I mean the HBO series. Original movie's great. Yul Brynner, was really the best the 70s could do. It was a good concept. I get what they went with. It was a little bit low budget, so they didn't try and lean heavy into the special effects. The idea of going to this hedonistic theme park. Let's just take a moment even on that, because that exists in both the original film and in the HBO series, right? You have this theme park for adults that you can just go and do what you want. You can fuck whoever you like. You can kill whoever you like, because it doesn't matter, right? They're just machines, right? We just give them this, we just kill them over and over again, or do whatever. And sure enough, given that thing, what surprises me in that, try not to get too heavily into the spoilers in the HBO series, is how shocked one of the protagonists' family is when they actually discover out what he's been doing every year when he takes his 2-week vacation in the park. Everyone is so shocked of like, wow, you did that? It's like, what do you think it was designed for? And I think that was what kind of frightens the shit out of me about this, as I am now going to, in a few weeks, finally take my family to Disney World, right? Which I won't be planning to kill anybody or doing anything like that. I am, however, going to go full immersive into Star Wars for 2 days. Yes, Greg, that's going to happen. And I'm going to send you all the pictures. Suck it up. Where we are in the Star Cruiser for 2 days, and I will be in my Jedi outfit. Yes, that's going to happen. So,
oh God,
oh yeah, oh, we're leaning in.
His family calls it a bathrobe, but yeah,
that's okay. That's all right. It's my command center. No, it's your basement. We're leaning in full. So really, when I look at it, I can just take one of the quickest snapshots and be like, oh yeah, that's happening. Like, we know that people would totally sign up for that, and totally to look at the ultimate dystopia Futurama, shut up and take my money, right? That's exactly it. Because sure enough, I'm at the front of the line saying, shut up and take my money. So there really isn't even we're really at the point where there isn't a quandary where, that idea of this moral turpitude. It's like, oh my goodness, even watching the show itself and seeing how dark it is, and seeing how like dark the scenarios that they can play out in, that some people want to play, some people want to play it white hat, black hat. One of my favorite moments is when they're touring the other parks and they see Samurai World. And my first thought was, oh, I'd go to Samurai World. I'm doing that shit, right? Fuck Westworld. I want that one, right? That's the one right? So even within the setup in it, even I, as the viewer, am watching this weird ass hedonistic murdering, raping theme park. And I'm like, I want the Japanese themed one. Right? That's exactly it. I'm already taking out my wallet and saying, shit, I want to give that a try, because I can hold a samurai sword for a couple of days, which is kind of like a Jedi lightsaber. But moving on from that, in those self-reflective moments, here is the thing, that there's 3 seasons currently of the HBO one. I think they're going to do one more, and they pull back in the 3rd season. Again, trying to go light on the spoilers, but I do encourage you to watch it. And you get to see what the rest of the world, the real world, looks like outside of Westworld. And here's where it gets interesting. Where it tries to be futuristic, but how far futuristic is it? Clearly, there's been impact from environmental disasters, and we are using more electric cars. We're using those things. Cityscapes, if you look at them in that show, they're grown with greenscapery on the outside to actually reduce carbon emissions and reduce cities' carbon footprints, which, if you look at certain areas of Hong Kong and other areas in China, not the ghost cities, mind you, starting to do more and more of that, especially in more packly dense cities. India starting to look to that, right? So you've got buildings that are overgrown with the side of trees. It's kind of cool, right? In some ways, but here I'm like, that's really salient. That's really here right now. They have self-driving cars. They have self-driving cars. They have things that show up, of course, that are fully electric and fully automated. Well, what does Elon Musk want to do, right? He wants to give you that self-driving car. He wants to give you, that access. In that, the corporations do have an outsized influence. And again, as Greg did point out, not trying to start a fight between Greg and RaShaun again, but that idea of, we keep clicking yes, right? Terms of service, terms of agreement. Who really leads into that? Like, come on. We saw the South Park episode where they turned everyone into human centipede. We still click yes. I do it. I'm fully owning myself here. But in that world, I
disagree with that point, to be fair.
And in that world, and even in the West world, right? They don't look at the agreement they're signing when they go into Westworld, because it's giving them permission to try and copy their psyche and try and give a certain percentage of elites this idea of immortality by being able to copy and paste and download their brain from their human bodies into these robot shells, right? That idea is out there. I don't believe we have the technology of it, but I believe people want the technology. And I believe it's a little bit closer than we think. Maybe not quite there still, but that idea and wanting people to be, people wanting this life, people really hoping for it across the board. I think you get a lot more people. And to wrap up on the last thought of it, in the last season of Westworld, they show that there's this idea of this overriding artificial intelligence that is trying to run and trying to manage society on an idea of a social credit score, which right now, if you look at the Chinese government, again, not trying to point fingers, I'm just trying to talk about ideas and facts and ideas of where the two overlap. The Chinese government has play with this idea of a social credit score, that if you're a better citizen and you sort of exemplify certain qualities they want, they can elevate you and you can get a better job and you can do certain things. Whereas if they've been diagnosed with certain other traits, they want to put you on a different career track, or you're not necessarily going to get the same jobs or the same idea. A little Alex Jonesy, and I hate Alex
Black
Jones.
Mirror did an episode that was exactly that.
Exactly. So it's the idea is
Black
out
Mirror
there.
is all dystopia, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all out there 100% in the zeitgeist, but it really does ring true, particularly. And I'll end on this last note: the idea of the character played by Aaron Paul, who I really give big thumbs up to as an actor. I really think Aaron Paul is an excellent actor, and on the same par and as Bryan Cranston. I think the two of them make Breaking Bad because they're both really, really top notch. His character has been put on that social track. He's interacting with artificial intelligence, turning him down for job interviews. Like, he's trying to get like straight work and do legitimate jobs. But in this world, the AI that's running it has also created a subculture for the criminal underworld, an app that gives you jobs to go and rob people, in some cases to go and kill people. They call them personals. And that, when I look at the Tinder generation and everything else, it was so chillingly dead on, right? The idea that someone could swipe right on a job, you got to go out, you got to rob this store, you get paid, whatever it is, for somebody else's dirty work. That to me brought it all home. That to me tied it up in a neat bow. And I was like, holy shit, that's way closer than we think.
Yeah, I mean, coming from, this generation and what we think the future is going to be like, I think it's really just, what's the extreme of all of these things that we, take part of that we just don't think about. And I think that's really it. Like, we just don't think about it. Like, we use our phones and we just don't think about it. We throw out a piece of trash. We just don't think about it, like those kinds of things, and, just thinking about the judgmental face that last polar bear is giving us. So if you
really, Karen,
so fucking judgy, so judgy. And for the thing that got me about Westworld was that, again, going back to the Orwell thing, it's not so much the individual things, but what seems to be the trend all the way through about our intrinsic nature. And what it says about our intrinsic nature is that even if you created a sublime world, like Mr. Smith said, we would destroy it. We need some place to go and work out those demons. Like, we need some place to go so we can have that sublime world on the outside, but I need to go someplace where I can go and do some violence. And, that would be, like that, where you would get that really important, psycho-emotional workout.
So it's a mini purge. You're saying I should.
It's a mini purge. Yeah, it's a place. It's a controlled purge.
I need a place where I can go and actually wield a lightsaber and, and kill some stormtroopers.
Well, that was originally the point of it. Like, you need some place where people can act out those parts of their nature, but those parts of our nature, even if we were going to make a utopia, are always going to be there.
Yeah, I don't know about all that. I never been in a utopia, so I don't know how I'm going to respond once in a utopia. I once again point out that we're going off of the thoughts and opinions of other people who knows, maybe Orwell was bringing in thoughts and opinions of other people around him. That's the thing that we continue to miss, is we're using thoughts and opinions as if they're laws and even worse, theories and principles. They are just thoughts and opinions. It's his guess. The funny part to what you're talking about, Josh, was that there's several other properties who've been doing this too. Altered Carbon comes to mind. They kind of are doing the exact same thing. Also, in the sense of like the extremes of how easy society can move into these things, like Greg just pointed out, Black Mirror. I didn't bring it up because it's actually, sadly, this almost goes to what Greg was saying in a weird way, but it's my Zen place. Black Mirror, I just, other than the last season, I could do without, but they just nail it in so many different ways because they take the subtle nuance of what we're already doing, as Greg pointed out, things we just do and forget about, and then turn it just not even on its head, just turn it slightly one direction or the other, to the point where we, as you point out, Chinese government may be doing something that Black Mirror was saying it was going to happen a couple of years ago, and they weren't saying it in like an awe-inspiring, this is crazy way, more like, hey guys, we're not that far away from this reality,
This
and
is
it's not
probably
going to
happen.
Yeah, it's not going to take a lot for it to get going. People, hey, we live in Boston. Boston Dynamics is doing awesome things, but guess what? The dog in Black Mirror episode that absolutely destroyed society and basically put us. Yeah, they have that like down the street from us, people. If you're listening to that,
less than 2 miles from my house. Less than 2 miles from my house.
And the funny part is actually
every day.
I actually know one of the scientists that was attached to that. Funny enough, yeah, weirdly enough. And then the last little thing that I was gonna quickly point out. Actually, I just lost it like normal. It wasn't profound. It wasn't like awesome.
It's always profound. It is always profound.
It was deep shit.
You know the deep shit. You bring the deep shit. But I just want to put out to our listeners, you know what probably won't lead to a dystopia or the need to purge your most violent impulses? Heading on over to Apple Podcasts and rating and reviewing the show. I think that's a perfectly healthy way to channel those violent dystopian urges. Or maybe, or maybe bring it out, maybe clicking on the merch button, helping push some of Greg's designs out there, get us out on the street there in the TSG over here in South Bedrock. But thank you again for joining us in our little thought experiment. RaShaun, I think you're absolutely right. Here comes the profoundness. Let's hear it in 3, 2, 1.
No, and the funny part with the whole like downloading your consciousness and keeping it in perpetuity to basically make you immortal, I would argue what's happening with this awesome breakthrough that's already started to happen, where they've been able to implant chips into people who say have paralysis or paralyzed, to get them to even communicate thoughts cybernetically through these chips. That's the nice side of that application. I believe the other side is really coming from what Josh was just talking about, which is, hey guys, we're probably already in the present tense of having technology where some billionaire or trillionaire is already going to live forever, or as long as this technology will be around, which will probably be a lot longer than humans.
I think you tied it back for just a moment there in a Universal Soldier, since we're going to keep on your Jean-Claude Van Damme, 80s.
Damn it.
He was in 2 or 3.
He was in at least a couple, and then he got too big for it, and now he needs the work again. So it's got to pay
Universal Soldier. Oh yeah, he was in 2 of them, right?
It was at least 2 of them. So, but
oh no, they brought him back from one of them.
Yes, you gotta bring back Jean-Claude Van Damme.
That's why people come here, is to check on their JCVD.
Absolutely, without a doubt. Which that series he did was pretty funny. I'm not gonna lie, but I also see why I didn't get a second round. Anyway, well, thank you again for joining us here in the steam tunnels into our little thought experiment. Which RaShaun, you're right. We take it from movies, we take it from other people's opinions, and thank God. What a time to be alive that we can do that. So tell us, what are you going to do? What are you going to do when taking that into the weekend? What are you going to do to make your own utopia, dystopia? What you got?
Like normal, I have absolutely nothing on the question you just asked me, because my brain is so far away from anything that has to do with anything you're talking about, because we've just been talking about Jean-Claude Van Damme. So now my head's on JCVD. So hey, JCVD, if you have nothing to do, you want to stop by, I got some wine, we can buy some Zubas and maybe dance or something,
hang out, play some video games.
Look, man, I know you got a couple of commercials going on, but let's be honest, you're not busy. So why don't you just come by, hang out? We can talk about how Vin Diesel could do better.
Yeah.
Rich, for some notes.
for maybe our new listeners, and shout out to our number one fan and coolest wife, Sarah, that I always picture the home life of RaShaun at the three clubs as that meme of like the of the couple lying in bed, and I bet he's thinking about other girls, and then over the other balloon, wonder what Jean-Claude Van Damme is up to today. that's,
I know what he's up to. It's probably fucking drugs, alcohol, and hookers, but at the same time, man, just take a break. I got a pizza shop right next door, man. We can get down.
Take a breather. Star Child, what galaxies are you zooming off to today?
Probably art galleries.
Excellent. That was
at least two of them. So
fantastic. I know that was big on the list, and what we were, on that, like what we're going to get back to, maybe it was movie theaters and it was art galleries. So I'm really glad to hear that you'll be out, looking at some work this weekend.
That's my plan.
Fantastic. Well, in the meantime, this is your little guide to this dystopian universe, telling you to go out and make your own. Try and make your own utopia this weekend. That's what I think you should do. That's what I think my plan is. I'm gonna go out and live my best life. What's that?
The Batman.
Oh yeah, that's right. We're all excited. Greg and I are going to see the Batman with the lovely Kim. We love you. Sorry, RaShaun. I know you had some other plans this weekend with your college friends. I know you're too cool for us. I know you're too cool to go see the Batman.
I can make an easy argument that you guys planned it this way.
Okay, all right. We're gonna go that way. No, sassy. Oh my god. And I just also want to note that we did introduce the term of fapping into the lexicon of the Steam universe today, so I'm very proud about that. But
nobody's happy when they're not getting off.
But we're gonna take that there, and I guess this is gonna go real well into my next point. But this is Josh the Birdman telling you to keep your heat up and keep your head of steam on. Sasquatch falls into that wonderful category that, like, I would love it to be true. Like, it would be so cool. There's no fucking way it is, but it would be cool.